All right, everyone, we have to talk about the possible purchasing of Greenland, the ramifications, the diplomatic considerations, and whether Trump is actually serious about it. When Donald Trump threatens tariffs on Canada or Mexico, it's to extract tribute effectively. Hey, you do a huge amount of trade with us, but our borders are effectively unguarded. We're going to need you to compensate for that. That's basically the reason why. And both Canada and Mexico, to their credit, by the way, have come to the negotiating table on that issue, probably for economical reasons. When we talk about the Panama Canal, I've said we need to sweeten the deal. We retake the canal zone, but we also expand it, we fortify it, and we pay off Panama's debt or something like that. We sweeten the deal. Give them a good deal because quite clearly we can absorb the cost, and in the long term, it makes us a shit ton of money too. If we're not being taxed on our tonnage, yeah, long term, that would pay off. It would pay off bigly, as Trump would say. With Greenland, though, it seems that Trump is actually serious about the proposal of buying Greenland. He's made memes about it. The fact is that right now it is effectively administered by the nation of Denmark, which is in NATO, it's in the EU, so there's the European question. But the Prime Minister of Greenland, or El Presidente of Greenland, a nation which has only about 50,000 people in it, by the way, because there's not much acreage that is actually arable except right along the southern shore, has expressed interest, and apparently the people of Greenland, the Greenlanders, have expressed interest in ripping themselves away from Europe. Now, I think it's a sovereignty movement more than anything else. My belief is still that Greenland is going to push for full independence, so it's no longer effectively a protectorate of Denmark, it's a fully sovereign nation. But it's not going to have a very big population. There are as many people in my county as there are in all of Greenland, for example. My county is mostly rural. A lot of it's just forest and farmland. That's because Greenland's economy is fuel, minerals, fish, and sealing and stuff like that. That's the economy of Greenland. There are a huge number of resources available there, but here's the problem. Under EU law, because they're effectively administered by the Danish, there's no investment being made into that. They can't extract the minerals. They can't extract the fuel. Hell, they've got a bunch of fishing laws that are designed by Europeans who live in a completely different climatic condition. And so Denmark becoming sovereign, it would be able to extract these resources. The problem is that Europe is not going to invest in them, and they're not part of Europe anyway. Greenland is closer to the Americas rather than to Europe. It's basically like there's a wall between them and Iceland that sort of dissociates the two. It makes more sense for the United States to administer, therefore, to Greenland. I would love to travel there, by the way. I imagine there's all sorts of exotic foods that you can get there, all sorts of crazy shit. Seal meat, I've tried it. It's actually delicious, by the way, although that was from Japan. It makes more sense for the United States, with its less regulated aspects, to administer Greenland to an extent. Maybe not outright buy it and turn it into a state or something like that, although I'm fine with that too. If you want to become a protectorate, a territory of the United States, you can petition to do so. It wouldn't take much effort considering the limited number of people on the gigantic island, which is mostly glacier. But the mineral and fuel resources that are there would be better administered, I think, by US firms that have more latitude than by European firms that have relatively less. It means more wealth, it means more fuel and minerals for the United States, more wealth, fuel and minerals for the people of Greenland. Everyone benefits. It does make sense. On paper, at the very least, properly motivated, the United States could pull this off, and it would be funny. The idea that we're going to admit Canada as a state or a series of states, that's not going to happen. That's literally just to force tariffing and stuff like that. The idea that we can reform the Panama Canal Zone, That's proper. I mean, we administered it and literally built it ourselves anyway. With Greenland, it's a little bit more nebulous. It's a situation where, again, on paper, it's a good idea because literally every party benefits. And Europe gets drained of a giant island full of fuel and minerals and shit like that. And that's a good idea right now because Europe is popping off and they're doing the neo-colonialism thing again and shit like that. It's a good idea. Will it actually happen? I doubt it. I don't think that it's likely to happen. But is it possible? And would it be a good idea? Yes. Would I support invading Denmark? No, of course not. That's completely insane. Would I support the possibility of getting a secessionary movement going and then using that to pull Greenland into the United States sphere, whether it remains sovereign or becomes a state or something like that? Yes, absolutely. As long as it's nonviolent. I don't support war. You may have noticed this. Uh, because it would be mutually beneficial. Denmark is a tiny little blip on the radar of Europe. Highly literate? Yes. Good food? Oh, hell yes. Have you tried sugar brown potatoes? Have you tried their apple cake? Oh my God, I've got to get my ass to Denmark sometime. Are they capable of effectively defending Greenland in case something pops off? No, they are not capable of doing so. And since it's technically a sovereign nation, it, as a technicality, it's again in a nebulous state. They wouldn't be able to invoke NATO's articles if, let's say, a couple of Chinese frigates show up and overrun the island, which they could easily do. Uh, is the United States capable of defending it? Hell yeah. Yeah, we can defend Greenland, especially when investors pile in knowing that they'll get a return on investment and gold goes flowing like a goddamn river through the streets of Greenland, which would happen. It would probably double the GDP. It would massively increase the output of the country and or incepted state or territory, whatever it happens to be at the time. It would massively increase that. It's just like Puerto Rican statehood, and I run up against many of my own subscribers on this. Puerto Rico is already a U.S. territory. Puerto Ricans are already U.S. citizens, and they can go anywhere else in the United States and get a passport and do everything else that a U.S. citizen can do. There's still the territorial question. I have long since said that it's a good idea to admit them as a state because then investment happens. Puerto Rico right now is a bit ghettoized because of its territorial government and because of its governance system. It would become very, very squeaky clean very quickly, make a huge ton of money for both the Puerto Ricans and for everyone else in the United States because that's a lot of shoreline there in the Caribbean now, isn't it? It would become a glowing star of the United States, quite literally. We'd have to redesign the flag, I suppose. Why don't we just admit Greenland and Guam at the same time? Yeah. Hell, why don't we petition the Philippines and say, hey, we saved your ass and you're cool and apparently most of you like Americans, so well, why don't you just become a U.S. state? What's the problem with that? Let's expand instead of contracting. Let's not do what Rome did, sit on our laurels and stagnate, and actually reach out into the world. I don't know. I don't see a problem with this myself. That's about all. Peace out.